Fred H. Cate is a professor of law at Indiana University. He joins us now from Bloomington, Indiana. Professor, thank you so much indeed for your time. Okay, your specialist subject, let's get into the law then. What does the law say? I mean, it's quite clear that this man, Al-Shamrani, had the gun, he killed the people, he himself was killed. So no doubt about the identity of the shooter. What does the law say about someone who is in that position? In other words, pretty much obviously guilty about their rights to privacy?
Well, the law doesn't say much of anything about their right to privacy, but what it does say is when you serve someone with a subpoena to hand over information, they must do it. But it doesn't say that they have to take some technical step to make that information available. And that's what this very familiar fight is about, which is Apple and the FBI have been wrestling for the better part of a decade now over to what extent must Apple put into its phones a way to allow it to defeat its own encryption.
So therefore, a country that has suffered attacks like 9/11, as well as multiple domestic terrorism activity, how come it doesn't have in federal law some kind of system that would allow authorities, especially, again, as I say, in a case like this? I mean, there was the San Bernardino shooting, wasn't there, a few years ago, and exactly the same thing happened. I believe the gunman's phone was an Apple phone, and the authorities just couldn't get into it for a long time. You've got who else? Timothy McVeigh, Oklahoma. What about a situation like that? Just talk to us about terrorism and why the US government doesn't have these kind of laws that would help an investigation.
Well, it's a great question. And part of the answer is that it's very difficult to create those types of legal requirements without then allowing access in other times when you might not want to allow access. So for example, right now, Apple designs its phone so that even it doesn't have the key. The key is stored on the phone itself. And so if you change that system, you would then weaken the encryption, the argument goes, the argument that Apple and many of its customers believe, you would weaken the protection available so that then when somebody, say a criminal, wanted access to the phone, they might be able to break in as well. So this is largely the result of an engineering choice that Apple made. Apple made it very explicitly. So Apple provides a lot of support to law enforcement. It provides backups of files. It provides access to iCloud information. It provides other support. But it's engineered its phones so that right now they are not capable of being broken into by the maker. You have to hack them the old-fashioned way, which is very time-consuming. In this case, it took months, as Attorney General Barr noted.
What's the line between the law and the legal position compared to the ethics of a position between those who say, I really don't want the government or the authorities to know where I am, because obviously smartphones have these abilities to locate you wherever you are, or who I'm messaging, versus those people who say, you know what, if you haven't done anything wrong, you haven't got anything to hide. So what's the legal versus the ethics situation here?
Well, I think in an ideal world, you would love to have a technology that made it possible to say nobody gets access to your sensitive information except when there's a compelling need and a court or some other federal authority has said, yes, in this case, you need access. The problem is right now, technology has not made that possible. It's a little bit of a binary choice. It's a little bit of an us versus them. You either protect it all the time or you can't protect it at all when you really need to protect it. And so I think one question is, could we do research? Are there engineering ways around this? Could we imagine other types of encryption systems that would make it possible to only let certain parties use it? But the challenge here is a very significant one, and it is indeed ethical. You're absolutely right. Because, of course, lots of people do business on their phones. They might have medical or financial records. They want that information protected. And so trying to find a technological way to say, yes, really strong protection against all of the sort of hacking that's going on all the time. But then when a court authorizes it, then there would be a special way in. That would be an amazing thing to find. Right now, we just don't have that.
Professor, knowing about your knowledge of the law and law enforcement, presumably as well, do you think, and I'm asking you to hypothesize, do you think that the CIA, the FBI, other intelligence agencies have some sort of system in place that when a telephone that's located in the United States calls a certain country, say Saudi Arabia or say Yemen or say Libya, or say Iraq, that an alarm goes off and that phone call could then be not necessarily recorded, but registered to have happened? Would the intelligence agencies be doing that in a hypothetical situation now, do you think?
Right. Well, and of course, I don't know the answer to that, but I would not at all be surprised if we knew that when you call a number, for example, of a known or a suspected terrorist or a terrorist organization that is being surveilled, whether by their own government or by the U.S. government or by somebody else, that there would be automatic alerts that would either note that call or record that call, even if the call itself is encrypted. And it's important, I mean, as this example suggests, to keep separate the situation in which the FBI and the Attorney General were dealing with in the Pensacola shooting, which is they weren't trying to intercept a communication that was taking place. They were trying to get records off the phone itself, like getting the records off of a computer that had been shut down. In one case, a bullet had actually been put through the phone. And so a very different thing about intercepting a call while it's happening, as opposed to recording the information about getting the information about the phone, about the call after it's taken place from the phone itself.
Professor Fred H. Cate, thank you so much indeed. How interesting to hear what you have to say about privacy in situations like this especially. Thanks a lot.